All right, so we're going to do finding the radius of the sphere. Let me make sure I have this. So we have a tennis ball with a radius 2.5 inches. We're going to use this formula. So volume will equal 4/3 pi radius cubed. We're going to get an exact answer. You're going to multiply 4/3 by 2.5 cubed. All I'm doing here is using the commutative property and rearranging the order in which I multiply the numbers. So when I do that, I'm going to get an exact answer. And I want you to leave this as a fraction. 125/6 pi inches cubed. Now, if I want an exact answer, I'm going to put 125/6 times 3.14 inches cubed. And when you multiply that out, you guys should all be doing this on your calculator. So you can actually see that you're getting the right answer and you're pressing the right buttons. And we're going to round this to the nearest thousandth. And as I go along, I'm going to round to different places. So just be sure you're paying attention and you understand how to round. So the volume of this tennis ball is 5.412 inches cubed, the approximate volume. So let's review how we find the volume of a cylinder first and then a cone, and you all should always draw pictures. So let's make this cylinder. Now notice the diameter is 4 inches. So if the diameter is 4 inches, that means this whole distance across is 4, right, across the center. But I only want the radius, so I only want half of that. Also, the radius is going to be half the diameter. The radius is 2 inches. And my height is 8.5 inches. So we'll use the formula. Volume equals pi 2 squared times 8.5. And I'm going to rearrange this, and 2 squared is 4 times 8.5 times pi. That's not a very pretty pi, but there you go. And I'll get 34 pi. So that's 34 pi inches cubed. Remember, we're finding out how many cubes fit in this cylinder. And if I go to estimate it, it's 34 times 3.14 inches cubed. And I'll get, using your calculator, which you all should be doing, this is 100. Oops. So the volume of that cylinder is approximately 106.76 inches cubed. So we'll go to one more. We'll find an example of the volume of a cone. Once again, draw a picture. So here's a cone. You know my artistic ability is not that great, so please forgive me. Be careful here. They've given me the radius. Last time they gave me the diameter. So the radius is 3 centimeters and the height is 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters here, 3 centimeters here. So the volume, we can do pi r squared divided by 3, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. I'm going to do multiply by 1/3. And you guys saw that because it takes 3 cones to fill up one cylinder as long as they have the same diameter and the same height. So 1/3 pi 3 squared times 7. So volume is going to equal 1/3. 3 squared is 9 times 7 pi, just using the commutative property and at the same time squaring my radius. So when I do 1/3 of 9 times 7, gives me 21 pi centimeters cubed. That's the exact answer. If I want to know the estimated, if you all think about it, when you get this exact answer, your estimated answer should be a little over 3 times as big, or 3 times, not as big, 3 times as this coefficient of pi, basically, right? Because 21 times 3 is what, 63, so it should be close to 63. A little over 63. So when you do 21 times 3.14, you get 65.94 centimeters squared. Just always checking the reasonableness of my answer. Does my answer make sense? All right, so sometimes you're going to be given the volume and you're going to have to find the height or the radius of a cylinder, cone, or sphere. So we're going to have volume equals of the cylinder pi r squared h. Remember, or just FYI, none of these figures are drawn to scale. Because we're given my volume and I'm looking to find the height, I'm going to rearrange this. So I'm going to make it pi times 9 squared equals the height, or times the height, excuse me, times the height equals the volume. And I know I'm given the volume, right? I have the volume, I have the radius. Pi is a number I can use, so my unknown is the h. So 9 squared is 81 times pi times h has to equal 1,215 centimeters cubed. I'm going to take 81 times 3.14, and gosh, you're going to get a decimal answer. That doesn't mean you do anything differently than when we were working with nice, pretty integers. 81 times 3.14 is 254.34 times the height will give me a volume of 1,215. Solving for h, divide both sides by the 254.34, divide by 254, 4.34. Move it this way. So when I do that, my height is approximately, because I did estimate with the pi, because the actual number pi is irrational, so we're going to have to estimate. So the height of this cylinder is 4.78. Notice, height is one-dimensional. It's just centimeters. I'm only looking for the height, right? One dimension. How about this cone? I'm going to write this as 1/3 pi r squared h equals the volume, and let's just put in what I know. I'm given the height and I need to find the radius, so I'm going to be looking for r. So 1/3 pi times 11, just rearranging it so I can get my unknown at the end, and the volume is 412.5 centimeters cubed. When I multiply 1/3 times 3.14 times 11, go ahead and do that in your calculator while I'm doing this, and you should get 11.513. R squared equals 412.5. Now be careful here. This brings us back to our Pythagorean theorem, because I don't want the radius squared, I only want the radius. So when I, just like anything, I want r squared by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by the number in front of r. And I'm going to get r squared equals 35 point, I think it's 828, sorry. 828. However, that is the radius squared. How do I find just the radius? We take the square root of both sides, because you know, we learned when we did looking for Pythagoras that the square root of something squared is just that something. So the square root of r squared, I'm going to have to use this again, is r. And the square root of 35.828 is approximately 5.99 centimeters. So the radius is about 5.99 centimeters. If I said round to the nearest whole number, you would say r would be 6 centimeters. Once again, one-dimensional. Radius is just a length, one-dimensional. All right, the sphere. Okay, so we know 4/3 pi r cubed gives us the volume. So here we are actually looking for the radius. So we're going to want to get that r cubed by itself. Put in what we know. We know all we know really is the volume, but we know volume is 4/3 pi. So when I do 4/3, please, 4/3 times 3.14 is going to be 4.1867 r cubed equals 113.04. So once again, let's divide both sides by the coefficient. It's not an integer coefficient, it's a nice long decimal, but that doesn't mean we do anything differently than we did if it were an integer. Divide both sides for that, and now we get r cubed equals 26.9997, which is pretty close to 27. Then we're going to take the cube root of that. If you're not sure how to find the cube root on your calculator, you're going to hit math, and I believe you go down to number 4, and it should have just this. That cube root, then put the number 26.9997 in there, and the radius is about 2.999 centimeters. So if I was going to round to the nearest whole number, the radius of that beach ball would be about 3 centimeters. Right? One dimensional. All right. Good luck doing your homework.